Peace, what's good? How y'all doing? This is ZaZa Ali. Today is Sunday, February 9th. I pray that this message reaches you all in the best of health, spirit, and mind. I'm doing well. I'm a little winded because I have done a lot of talking today and I've been working a lot today, so I'm a little tired. But I wanted to, while it's on my mind and my heart, get a couple of messages out. One video that I'm going to do separate from this is from a question from a sister that's in my Alchemy Cipher group. And this particular video is from, I've gotten this question a lot over the years, particularly probably over the past years, because I've been really focusing on spirituality. What is Christ consciousness? And so I wanted to try to make a short video and address this in as simple of a way as I can to give the question the respect that it deserves, but also in keeping in alignment with what I know to be true about thought and about studying and research in the mind. In no way do I claim to be an expert. This is a footnote. In no way do I claim to be an expert or a theologian. I am a student of many different cultures, many different religions, and many different sciences, and in particular my own life. So this comes from my research, from my studying, from my perspectives, and from my life experience. Now let me just say this to my beloved Christian family. I love you guys. If you have not veered off and studied other religions and other cultures, it's a little, I don't know what the right word for me to say is. It's hard to have a well-rounded dialogue with people who are stuck in their own particular dogma or in their way of thinking. I don't want to impose on you what I think. I don't want to impose on you what I believe. If my perspectives does not resonate with you, it is totally fine and totally 1000% okay for you to take everything that I say and to toss it out the window, and we don't even have to discuss this anymore. Like I said, I'm doing this video because several people have asked me about this, because I put up a post recently. I always talk about Christ consciousness. I even hashtag Christ consciousness in some of my contents, in some of my posts, excuse me, and people ask me about, well, what does that mean? What does Christ consciousness mean? So I said, I'll do a video about it. And I've talked about religion versus spirituality before. I get a lot of messages from people that are curious about what exactly spirituality is. People who are on the line, so to speak, between, the way that they grew up and the religion that they were taught, and, exploring a deeper aspect of themselves. Now, let me say this, because I've gotten accused before of being the Antichrist or representing what the Antichrist is supposed to mean in the scheme of the book. I've been told that doing yoga is a form of devil worship. Anything that you can imagine, I've heard it. I don't disrespect people's religion. I believe that it is truly up to all of us to respect whatever path people choose to go through in their lives. So whether it's Islam or whether it's African spirituality or whether it's atheism, all of us as human beings, as extensions of God or the Creator, have the right to worship, to pay homage, to study, to in whatever capacity you feel is appropriate. I 100% support you in that. And I just want to be clear on that, because anti-religion is a new form of religion. And I see so many people trying to yell at people, dissuade people, bring history into context, blame Islam for, slavery, blame Christianity for slavery. And I get it. I'm a student of history. Like, I understand where that comes from. Yes, Arabs were involved in the slave trade of Africans. Yes, Europeans used Christianity in order to, when you see me looking at my thing, I'm writing down notes so I don't forget stuff that I want to say, because I'm totally freestyling today. I just wanted to put up a couple of videos, some content to bring some awareness, and more than anything, to get people to think. Excuse me. So yes, both of those religions were involved in the slave trade in Africa. But what we have to remember is, number one, Christianity preceded, as we know it, maybe not as we know it, but Christianity preceded Europeans coming to Africa. And we know that through the Ethiopian Orthodox variation of Christianity, if you will. And then when it comes to Islam and the Muslims that went up into Europe are the reasons that the Moors ruled Spain for 700 plus years. It was a mixture of African spirituality and Islam, but for the most part, it was Islam that took what's the word I'm looking for? That civilized Europe, for lack of a better term. The Arabic language, the statues, the architecture. Moorish Spain and Islam is painted all over Europe. And these were Africans who were studying and who were adhering to the precepts of Islam that went into Europe and actually ruled and civilized Europe, but also were very, very, very religious tolerant. Now, that opposed to the what's the word I'm looking for? The wars that broke out when Islam finally met its demise. What's the word? Not crucifixion. It's on the tip of my tongue. This is what happens when I just like come on and freestyle. I don't have all my thoughts together. The Crusades. So anyway, I didn't really want to make this too much about religion, but I just wanted to say that because I already know some of the comments that I'm going to get. People who are in their religious dogma or who only see the world through their specific lens. One thing that I have learned as a student and lover of all things that deal with God and that deal with the universe, that deal with consciousness, is that you have to let people grow at their own pace. You cannot force your religion or your way of thinking or your way of seeing the world on anybody. It is absolutely 1000% a waste of time. And like I said, anti-religion now has become a new religion. I don't like to get into all of that stuff. I read my Bible. I read the Quran. I study different variations of spirituality. The Kabbalion is my number one resource. This is sort of like a Bible or a spiritual book for me because I am more geared towards spiritual science than anything. I like for my knowledge and information to be rooted in something substantive. And I say that knowing that a lot of this stuff we can't prove. The unseen realm, so to speak, right? It can't be proven. So from that perspective, it's a waste of time, most of the time, to be arguing about things that we can't prove or trying to force people to see the world from the perspective that we see them. If you look at, let's say, in the hills of Tibet, right? Or in some far off distant land where they don't have access to the internet, they don't have access to radio, they don't have access to, the media in order to help them to formulate a certain opinion on any of the stuff that we're talking about. How could we say that they are less than, or that they are somehow not adhering to universal laws or to the creator because they don't ascribe to your particular religion? It's crazy. There are 8 billion people on this planet, and there are so many different dialects, so many different customs, so many different religions, so many aspects of spirituality, and they are all right in a certain regard, and some of them are wrong in other regards. But once I started to look at the world and the universe, my place, as well as the bigger scheme of reality from the perspective of everything that we know, the Kabbalion calls it the all. We are a part of the all. There is the all, and then we are a part of it. It's like pieces of a puzzle that fit into a large puzzle. Once you start taking pieces out, the puzzle isn't complete. right? So once I started to look at life from that perspective, I stopped trying to look at everything from a lack-based perspective, meaning the Bible is a poison book, meaning Islam, was responsible for enslavement. And I stopped looking through the lens of the lack perspective and started looking through the lens of an abundance perspective, which is what the universe is made of. We can comb through Islam and look at all of the value and the benefits that it brought to Africa and to the world, so to speak. There's billions of Muslims on the planet, and 99.9% of them are peaceful and some of the most beautiful and humble and intelligent people that I've ever met in my life were Muslims. Same thing with Christianity. So there's different variations and aspects to this, and I don't want to try to make it seem like I know everything about any of them or that one particular one is right. Depending on where you are in your state of consciousness, you can decide what is right for you. So with that being said, this concept of Christ consciousness, Khalid Muhammad has a video, on YouTube. Let me see if I can find it real quick. Hang on. I don't even know what the name of the video is. It's something about spirituality. Let's see if I can find it. Okay, no, I have to look for that. I haven't watched it in a while, but Khalid Muhammad has a video on YouTube where he is talking about all of the characters in the Bible representing different forms of consciousness and different aspects of your personality. So Jesus being an aspect, Judas being an Mary being an aspect, Joseph being an aspect, right? And talking about how, and this goes in alignment with Neville Goddard's teachings, who studied underneath a brother who was a Christian, but he had a Muslim name, Abdullah. He was a black man, and he was a black man that taught Neville Goddard about the power of the imagination, and that the Bible was a psychological book, and that it was not meant to be taken literally. That the book is based around symbolism, which, based on my own personal research, understanding, and perspective, I believe to be true. The Bible is, as with everything, and there's a physical aspect and there's a spiritual counterpart. So no matter what it is that we're talking about, whether it's spirituality, whether it's religion, whether it's politics, whether it is race, whether it is gender, whatever it is that we're focusing on, we have to always remember there is a spiritual counterpart and there is a physical counterpart. The Bible is a book of symbolism, right? So I'm not going to get too deep into this. I just want to kind of touch the surface and give you guys a little bit of some seed, so to speak, for you to go out and research and read and study and come to your own consensus. I will say, if you want to talk to me or get more information about this, join my private group, Alchemy Cipher. I have my members ask me questions about whatever they want to ask me about, and they have my direct attention, and I will give them source information and more content. But the Kabbalion, in the section that talks about the planes of correspondence, it says that there are three great classes of phenomenon that represent everything in the universe and life in general. The great physical plane, the great mental plane, and the great spiritual plane. And this is important because I just want you to understand that the scientists of this world say that there are 100 billion galaxies, like, in the universe. We live in one galaxy. So the vastness and the expansiveness and the far-reaching planes of energy and matter and consciousness and life and existence are so much bigger than anything that we could possibly conceive. It's almost laughable to an extent, and I say this from where I am now. I grew up in a family full of Baptists, Christians, to conceive that one particular man was the end all be all when it came to the concept of being a savior. Now, so when I say Christ consciousness, I'm talking about a level of consciousness. Everything is consciousness. Everything is energy. Everything is awareness. So between energy, consciousness, and awareness, right? We're not even talking about one particular person yet. We're not talking about one man that lived at a certain time or which particular religion. We're talking about the fundamental, uh, uh, the fundamental uh, um, foundation from which all things come: consciousness, awareness, and energy. So, from that perspective, the physical plane, the mental plane, and the spiritual plane, every aspect of you is made up of those different elements. And I always say mental, spiritual, emotional, and physical. Emotional is a reflection of all of those different planes, right? Emotional responds to physical as well as mental as well as spiritual. But your state of consciousness, wherever you are right now, is being reflected in your life. We have people that aspire to a consciousness of abundance, not just as far as like money and materialistic things, but maybe those things, or perhaps being a servant of the world, perhaps giving love and positive energy, perhaps being, helpful to humanity. And then you have, people who do it through the financial means, the economic means. And then you have people that do it through the mental realm, through their writing, through their teaching, right? So the question for you, part of us discussing this idea of Christ consciousness, but then personally to you, what is your state of consciousness? Are you living your life with full intention? I aspire to become Christ-like. I aspire to become the master of my fate. I aspire to be self-ruled. I aspire to be free. I aspire to be a reflection of the Creator. When that thought came to me of God is expressing itself through you. So God is experiencing the physical realm through me. So everything that I think, everything that I say, everything that I read, everything that I post, every thought, all the mundane, regular thoughts that we think don't mean anything, God is expressing itself through us. Now, that doesn't mean that, let's say, if you think some paltry or some savage thought, or you write something wicked on social media, or you do something wicked, or make a mistake, or have a failure, or have a tragic incident in your life, that doesn't mean that God is like, okay, yeah, I'm going to experience rape. I want to experience rape. So, no, we got to think about this from a different level. We got to think higher when it comes to this conversation. It's not a particular thing or person that is making decisions, making judgments, making the world go round, so to speak. It is consciousness and energy and awareness that is experiencing life, and it's expanding. So how I'm thinking, I'm talking right now, everybody who's listening to me, every time I say something, a thought pops up in your head. Thought produces thought, which produces thought, which produces thought. Mind produces mind, which produces mind, which produces mind. So the scientists of this world talk about the Big Bang Theory, when there was this explosion of energy that took place, which set off all that we know there is to be, right? Yes, I believe that is true. But for us to try to pinpoint exactly how that happened, I think that it's important for scientists to continue to explore the universe. And let me backtrack a little bit here, right? Because when you study the atoms, right, the things that all life are made up of, do you guys know that every single human being has a 7 followed by 10 zeros? It's not even a number. They don't even have a name for it. That is the number of atoms that are in your body. Atoms are these circular, they are the makeup of all matter. I'm trying not to get too far off into this, but it's hard not to talk about this from a scientific level. I don't want to claim that I know everything. I don't even want you to like. I want you to have an aha moment, maybe, but more than anything, I want you to start exploring different aspects of life. That's what excites me. Studying the universe, studying consciousness, studying God. Like, I feel so alive when I am talking about this stuff and when I'm reading it and when I'm exploring it. So let me just backtrack a little bit because I don't want to get too scientific on you guys. I don't want to lose you. Everything is made up of energy. Everything is vibrating. Everything is moving. And in the Kabbalion, it talks about, this was so powerful when I first read it. Between the different states of the great physical plane, the great mental plane, the great spiritual plane, right? The thing that separates those three states is the rate that they're vibrating at. So Kobe Bryant just transitioned, right? He's in the spiritual realm now. So his spiritual being, his soul, his consciousness is no longer in the physical realm, but it has transitioned into the spiritual realm. So he is still with us. He's just vibrating at a different frequency. It's so like powerful when you think about it, from the unseen to the unseen, and how So let me read this quote before I get too far off into my nerd situation. Follow me, guys. I'm going to bring this back to the middle. The higher the degree of rate of vibration, the higher the plane, and the higher the manifestation of life occupying that plane. Now, let's contextualize this. When we talk about Jesus and the concept of Jesus, the idea of Jesus and Christ, so to speak, Christ consciousness, we're talking about higher degrees and higher states of consciousness. So the person who asked me this question on Instagram asked a question to somebody else that he or she was interacting with. Can all of us become Christ-like, or is it only specific ones? Yes and no, right? I believe, based on my research and life experience, there's levels and ages or stages of wisdom, so to speak. Souls that have been here longer and souls that are younger. Souls that come back into the physical realm because they have karmic debts to make up, or because they have different experiences that their souls wanted to realize. But I do believe that all of our souls come here into the physical realm to have different experiences in order to master certain lessons on the physical plane, to get to the next level. I saved a quote online. Let me see if I can find it real quick. I hate to pause in between the messages. I just be having so much stuff in my head, you guys, that I want to share with you and make understandable. No, that's not it. One second. I know I just saved it the other day. It was a perfect analogy. No, that's not it. Dang, man, come on. Okay, maybe I can't find it. Damn it. Oh. Earth is a school for mastering how to manipulate energy. We all begin with God and are sent out to learn and experience. Many other planets have easier courses of learning. The Earth School is the most difficult in the universe. Only the bravest souls sign on for this assignment. Our path is like a giant circle with no beginning and no end. We are eternal. Our spirits can never die or be destroyed. We are fellow travelers in the game of life, and our destinies are intertwined. This is from Dolores Cannon. That's actually not the exact quote that I was looking for, but I think it is sufficient for the purpose of our conversation. Dolores Cannon is deep when it comes to looking into past life regressions and look her up on YouTube. But anyway, dang, I wanted to find this specific quote. I hate when I do that. Okay. All right. Well, I can't find it. Oh, wait. Here it is. Oh, here it is. Sorry. Man is spiritual being, a soul, in other words, and that this soul takes on different bodies from life to life on earth to order at last, in order to at last arrive at such perfect knowledge through repeated experience as to enable one to assume a body fit to be the dwelling place of a Mahatma or perfected soul. Then they say that particular soul becomes a spiritual helper to mankind. So we come into this physical realm through different lifetimes in order to expand our souls and expand where we are in consciousness in order to, for this sort of self-perfection as a soul and to expand the universe. So everything that's happening right now, you think about technology, you think about science, you think about mathematics, you think about our own personal legacies and goals, is expanding the universe, which is expanding the experience that God is having through the physical realm. So going back to Christ consciousness, the purpose while we're here, and for some of us, we will experience it in this lifetime, probably a small number of people. And then for others, it's going to take many lifetimes in order to get to the stage where we will self-perfect, so to speak. Do all souls get there? I don't know. I can't even begin to say that I know that, especially when you look at the condition of the world. I mean, you look at people like Donald Trump or like, world dictators, people who have caused mass suffering and mass injury on the planet, and I think like this, like, well, what role was that in expanding God and expanding the Creator? Well, they're teaching us and reminding us of the goal that we all should have, which is compassion. I've read probably like 7 to 10 books when it comes to, what are we searching for? What is the purpose? Not just books, in over the overall consensus when it comes to spirituality and, what our goal is here. And they all seem to dwell on compassion, that we are here in order to learn and expand as emotional beings, as spiritual beings, to have the experience of emotion and to learn and to embody and to embrace compassion. So if you look at like what's happening right now with Kobe Bryant, there is a very large uptick in compassion. 9/11, compassion. The Jewish Holocaust, compassion, right? I think the only people that haven't really experienced compassion in a mass uptick as a whole is probably the African diaspora. And even that now is shifting because we are very much involved in shifting the consciousness of the planet. So when you have the Kobe Bryants and the Nipsey Hussles, they are shifting the trajectory of compassion and the energy as far as how people perceive us. And even beyond that, we outnumber, when it comes to melanated people, they say we outnumber Europeans, so to speak, 13-1. So if that's the case, then there should be a very big uptick in compassion for us by us because we represent the magnitude of people on this planet. And I think that's the thing that we really forget, how much power we really have, not just in numbers, but, the Kabbalion talks about being, the closer you are to the center, the more free you are. Well, because we were the indigenous or the first people, we naturally are closer to the center. So we suffer more when we move away from who we are really supposed to be. But we also, as we move more towards spirituality, higher states of consciousness, we will become more free because we are closer to the center when it comes to the chronology, if you will, of how mankind has evolved. And that's what I've been really trying to convey in simple terms in the Science of Self workbook and in Change Your Mind from Lack to Abundance. Really trying to, like, all this stuff that I'm talking about, like, break it down in, in increments and kind of give it to you in a way where it's understandable and relatable, and you can see how it affects your life. My next three workbooks, the first one I'm starting on already is Keys to Womanhood, things that every girl and young woman should know. Keys to Manhood, things that every boy and young man should know. And then I'm going to create a workbook first that's going to be a spiritual blueprint, talking about all these things that I'm talking about in different cultures, and trains of thought that I have studied from around the world, and then relate it to your own personal life. So the book will be first, and then once I'm kind of, everything kind of levels out for me, I'm going to take a year off and I'm going to write my book, The Science of Self, and it's going to be a spiritual blueprint for me to, trying to talk about this in a 30-minute sitting. When we're talking about eons and eons and eons of time, and really trying to get a full understanding and trajectory about God, about energy, about consciousness, about humanity, I feel like I'm doing it a disservice. I always do, but that's just, my own personal standards that I have for myself. But that is what I'm going to do. It's on my vision board that I am going to write a bestseller that's going to be a blueprint based on spiritual science and spirituality, and it will include all of the best of what we've learned from the different religions, the different cultures throughout history and whatnot. So that is going to be my legacy and my gift to the world. But in the meantime, I think The Science of Self, Volume 1, Mind, is a really, really, really good starting place in order to really kind of open your mind up. Because if you've only read the Bible, or if you've only read the Quran, or if you only know what your parents or your family taught you, you got to kind of get out there and really start to explore, first through not even just spirituality and religion, but like who am I? What is my purpose here? Like, why am I here on this planet? In the middle of this solar system, in the middle of this galaxy, in the million of 100 billion galaxies, able to think with my own mind, able to feel, able to learn, able to grow, able to make mistakes, able to love people, able to help people, able to become a master at my own particular trade, able to be a writer, an electrician, whatever you are and how you're experiencing your life. God is experiencing the world through you, not God sitting up above us on a cloud, judging and separate from what it is that we are experiencing, but a part of us experiencing this life through us. That energy and that awareness and that consciousness is experiencing the physical realm through you. So Christ consciousness, from my perspective, is aspiring to master the mental, spiritual, and physical plane in the physical realm. That is Christ consciousness. And some of us will experience, all of us will experience it in different ways. Some of us are aspiring to that level of self-mastery. Some of us think everything that I'm talking about is, somebody's going to think everything I'm talking about is crazy. And that's okay too. But really starting to think about the experiences that you're having, and like the quote that I read where it talks about the perfected soul, how much of what you've done in your life so far, how much of what you've offered to the collective consciousness is moving you towards that concept of a perfected soul, mental, spiritual, and physical plane. How, just starting to ask the questions, just starting to think the thoughts, just starting to be conscious and mindful. One of the things that my next life visioning group coaching session is on February the 29th. And we are focusing on, obviously the stuff we want to attract in our lives, right? The job we want, the money we want, the relationship we want, the car we want, the peace of mind, those aspects of who we are. But even deeper than that, one of the things that we're going to start exploring, the other 12 universal laws. We talk a lot about the law of attraction. And I hear a lot of people say, well, to get the law of attraction to work for you, you need to do this, or the law of attraction only works if you do that. And people really kind of jumble up the reality of that message and that lesson, because the law of attraction is always working. You don't have to get, you want to curtail how you think and how you feel so you can get it to work to your benefit. But the law of attraction is always working. whatever you're thinking, whatever you're feeling at any given moment, and multiply that by 7 days a week. Most people think, you ask yourself this question, most people think the exact same thoughts every day for most of their lives. Like if you put a magnifying glass on your life for a week's time, from Monday I went to work, I went to the gym. Tuesday I went to work, I went to my daughter's basketball practice. Wednesday, these are just ideas. Wednesday I went to work, then I came home and watched some TV and cooked dinner. Thursday I went to work. Like if you think about your day-to-day process, most people are thinking the exact same thoughts every single day of their life, with exceptions, when you go to in different environments and whatnot. But if your thought process and your energy and your consciousness and your awareness is what's actually creating your reality, doesn't it make sense then that nothing in your life is changing? Doesn't it make sense then that you keep meeting the same type of people in different bodies and keep having the same type of experiences in relationships and keep being limited in your job environments, or, limited because of the capacity to think, because of the capacity to feel, because of the capacity to experience? So let me cut this short. Christ consciousness represents a higher state of consciousness and awareness and energetic focus when it comes to self-mastery, when it comes to being the Lord and Savior of your own life, when it comes to being that I am that the Bible talks about. I am representing the awareness and the presence of you just being, regardless to where you are, what you have, what you've been through, how much money you have, what life experiences that you've had. That consciousness and awareness that goes beyond the physical realm and into higher states of consciousness when you are here physically, when you die and go into the spiritual realm, etc. That I am consciousness, that awareness. When you close your eyes at night and you still have the awareness to know that you are. That's what Christ consciousness is reflecting, and looking at the Jesus persona, so to speak, not as someone to worship or someone that came 2,000 years ago and was, he died for the sins of the world. No, it is representing an aspect of you that you can aspire to, not to physically die, but the lower self, the aspect of you that thinks that something outside of you is supposed to govern you or rule you, the idea that anything outside of you has power or control over you, the idea that you are limited because of your race or because of how much money you have or because of, any specific grievances or life experiences, all of those different things, that aspect, that form of consciousness has to die in you in order for you to be reborn and become a new man, to the point where you can say be and it is. That's the state of consciousness. When it all throughout the Bible, it talks about Jesus performing these miracles. It's not for us to look at Jesus in awe or to think he was the end all be all. It is to recognize that if I take full assertiveness and accountability for my own personal life, that I too can turn water into wine. You know what I'm saying? Or create miracles. And I know, because I've had miracles happen in my life that I absolutely just cannot explain. I don't like to talk about them because I don't talk about them to say what it makes other people, but it's uncomfortable to talk about them because people won't believe it. And these are things that happened to me when I was like flying with one wing. You know what I mean? Like, wasn't really fully like 1000% on my square, to where I could be like, okay, yeah, I was like on my game. Like, no, I was still having miracles happen in my life that absolutely cannot be explained through any sort of logic or reasoning. Excuse me. So, and that, of course, I believe my ancestors obviously are guiding me or guiding my life's path. And I also believe that my life trajectory, my personal legend, and what I am here to do, what my soul came to have in this experience, is a part of the guiding factor, so to speak, on, what will happen and what won't happen, what will be allowed for me to experience and what won't be allowed. There's layers to this. That's why I said in the life visioning group coaching sessions and in my private alchemy cipher group, we're going to start going a little bit deeper than just the law of attraction and start to explore the other universal laws, so that, because one of the questions that I've been asking and that we've been focusing on is, why aren't the things that I want to manifest in my reality not coming into fruition? I'm making my vision board, I know what I want, but it's still not happening. Well, there is different elements of us that we have to go after. Sometimes it's time and patience. Sometimes it is, unfinished business, like I talk about in Change Your Mind from Lack to Reality. There's still things that you need to clean up before you can go to the next level of yourself. Sometimes it is, trauma and things that we experienced at certain times in our life that we don't really understand, that are still affecting us and impacting us. And then sometimes, and a lot of times, it's just you haven't even decided what it is you want in your life. You say you want, a new car, but your soul has a much deeper and more thorough, calling than just a new Benz or a new Range Rover. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's a much bigger trajectory when it comes to the things that you are supposed to be aspiring to, but you're stuck on the car. So because you're stuck on the car, you have to have more humbling life experiences that will help your soul to grow and your heart to expand. And then, like I tell my group members, the more we start to focus spiritually and internally, the easier the physical things will be able to manifest. So this is like a 0.002% of, what we, the full context of this conversation. But Christ consciousness to me reflects the highest state of consciousness that we can aspire to on the spiritual, mental, and the physical plane. And if you are aspiring to Christ consciousness, that means mentally you should be reading, you should be keeping your mind sharp, you should be eating foods that make and herbal supplements that keep your mind sharp. You should be observing the world, you should be mindful of how you're thinking at all times. And always trying to grow mentally, spiritually. Obviously, you should be reading and studying things that you that resonate with you. All spiritual teachings don't resonate with me, and some things that resonated with me 10 years ago, I can't even listen to anymore today because I'm at a different stage of consciousness. In Sufism, they talk about there's phases of initiations that we go through. And once you graduate to a different stage based on your level of consciousness and your life experiences, new phases of power will open up to you. You will be able to, express, those higher states of consciousness and that God energy, so to speak, once you elevate in consciousness to different levels. So spiritually, seeking knowledge, being in touch and in harmony with nature, doing different spiritual practices, meditation, prayer, obviously, depending on what your countenance is, exuding love, making love frequency and your heart being a focal point when it comes to how you move about in the world. Did I say nature? I think I said nature. And other aspects of, your spiritual countenance, which you will define for yourself. Physically, yoga is my form of my goal for self-mastery when it comes to my physicality. It's not the only one, but it is, I work out and stuff like that, but I'm very mindful of my body. Breathing is a big part of that process. Do you understand the science of breath? So, and then your energy and your energetic resonance and how you affect other people. Your energetic resonance or your energetic signature, when it, so to speak, is a big part of all three, the mental, spiritual, and the physical aspect. And that's something that we talk a lot about in the life visioning group coaching sessions, as well as Alchemy Cipher. So I hope I know I just scratched the surface with this. In no way do I, claim to be a master at any of this. I just want to give you guys some things to think about. The Kabbalion is one of the books that I highly recommend. What else? I've given you guys. I didn't even think far enough to think about a book list. The Science of Self, my workbook, like I was saying, mine, volume 1. This is what I try to convey in a simple way when it comes to law of attraction, energy, and consciousness and whatnot. There's a volume 2 and a volume 3 coming, probably not until later this year. Volume 2 will be based around the physical body, and then volume 3 will be the soul. So those things will be forthcoming. But yeah, just think about it. You know, no reason to get upset or to think that anything I'm saying is blasphemous. Obviously, the Creator gave me my own mind and free will. And you have that too. So, you know, go out and discover and study and experience life. And remember that God is actually experiencing the physical realm through you. So make sure you make the Creator proud. ZaZaAli.com is my website. Thank you guys so much for tuning in and paying attention to my my thesis, so to speak. Peace and love.